All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Dimes and Donuts podcast, your deep dive into the BAAD Owners Fantasy Week, and it is week 8. Today I've got Abby and Nick today as my co-hosts. How are you guys doing?
Doing pretty good. Excited to talk about this past week.
Yeah, I'm not as excited.
Yeah,
sure.
I'm very excited. It's a good week to talk about things, right, Garrett?
Yeah, it's a great week. Well, for fantasy, it's a great week. This is the highest scoring week that we've ever had, and a bunch of offensive players went off. And we're going to see that reflected in our first category, Dimes of the Week, because there were no trades this week.
All right, so for this week in Dimes of the Week, we have 5 teams participating. Myself as the Plano Nukes, Atlanta Cicadas, TD11 Tudgays, CD's Nuts, and the Big Orcas. Neither of you two made the cut. How does that feel to be on the losing side?
Always on the losing side, usually, but so I'm not too sad about it. Would have been nice, but I think I'll be okay this week.
Okay, very cool. Well, let's just move on, hop right into the quarterback of the week, Tua Tagovailoa for the TD11 Tudgays. 29.18 points. I mean, I feel like this is kind of a long time coming. He's been feeding Tyreek and Waddle. It was only a matter of time before he started putting up serious numbers. I mean, this is awesome to see for the T11 Tudgays, especially because I think a lot of people doubted Tua's fantasy potentials based on the past few years. But, with new weapons, he's been really, performing at a high level.
Yeah, it's amazing, what a quarterback can do when he has 2 of the, top 10 receivers in the league. Right?
Yeah, I mean, he really went from screw it, Waddle somewhere to, wow, it could be Hill or him. And it's incredible to see. I'm happy for him, though, especially after the injuries and stuff. Hope he does well, continues to do well.
Yeah, this is what we see with quarterbacks across the league, too. Like Justin Fields, I don't want to say that he's a bust. Daniel Jones, I don't want to say that he's a bust because, a lot of people thought Tua was a bust just because he didn't really have a lot of weapons around him. I mean, look at what Aaron Rodgers is going through right now. In Green Bay after losing his weapons. I mean, it can happen to any quarterback, even a 2-time MVP. I love seeing him with weapons, and I think that he's definitely going to be in that upper echelon of quarterbacks as long as that roster around him remains super sound.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Especially as quarterback, it's such a team-dependent position. I feel like, a lot of people put them up as, they are the leader of the team, and the rest of the team will not perform if the quarterback's not good. But it's sometimes, over-exaggerated how much a quarterback alone can elevate the team, especially when it's not a completely generational talent. But, with weapons, he's been doing great. Moving on to running back of the week, Alvin Kamara. 42.8 points for the Atlanta Cicadas.
If you average this out across the year, he's a pretty okay running back.
3 touchdowns. It was incredible seeing him perform as most of us or a lot of us expected him to, but it was astounding to see just them feeding him the ball and throwing him the ball, doing what he needs to do. 42 points is insane.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna lie. I did not, going into this year, expect him to be performing at this high of a level. Obviously, I wasn't expecting him to be putting up 10-point weeks, but he's been performing fantastic consistently outside of those first 3 weeks. Well, I guess 4 weeks because he was out that 4th week. But ever since he came back, he's been doing absolutely fantastic. Was able to dodge the suspension that was sort of rumored coming around him, and it really's been paying off in Atlanta.
The suspension is going to be coming next season, most likely. So I don't know if he dodged it yet, but hopefully.
Yeah, 100%. So that'll definitely be something to an eye out for.
Well, wait, go back to him real quick. What was the suspension for? I'm not
actually. So there was a scenario in a club where he got into an altercation. Him and his friends got into an altercation. Not sure how involved he was, but he wasn't too involved, which is why he didn't get suspended this year. But because there was a certain amount of involvement and there were police involved, he will probably get a punishment of some kind. But I don't think it'll be an entire season.
Interesting.
I'm trying to think of 4-game, 6-game type of suspension.
Right. I remember Zeke in 2017 when he had his suspension for his, issues. The same thing. He punched a DJ or something. I think that was 4 or 6 games. That's probably the closest thing that I can equate that to. If they're sticking to their old suspension system.
Right.
It's been very different this year, so we'll see.
Right. This year it's basically half a game per allegation.
Right.
That's me pushing it, dude. That might be pushing it.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll see him miss one half of the first game. But moving on to wide receiver of the week, already saw a little bit of a sneak preview, but it is in fact A.J. Brown of the Big Orcas, a monstrosity. 39.6 points, 3 touchdowns. Was
In the first half.
Dominating this game.
Yeah,
It
it's another example of, us thinking that quarterbacks could be busts, or us thinking that quarterback play isn't great until they get a great weapon. The addition of A.J. Brown in the offseason has been huge for the Eagles.
The chemistry's been incredible, and it helps that, they're best friends, like, outside of football. So Jalen Hurts was really excited to get A.J. Brown. Like, when A.J. Brown was drafted, like, Jalen Hurts was at his house. Like, they're that close. So having somebody like that on your team, somebody you trust like that trust level is showing. And, like, it's incredible what they're doing. 7-0, incredible. I mean, I hate that it's the Eagles, but, you gotta give props when it's due, and they've been doing amazing, especially A.J. Brown. Incredible stuff.
100%. And I think the scariest thing about A.J. Brown specifically, and like you mentioned with the Jalen Hurts duo, they're both so young. This is going to last for a very long time. Assuming he, re-signs with them, which, with how good the Eagles are doing right now, why would they not, right?
Yeah, scary thought for sure. But yeah, I agree. I don't see why he would. He likes the quarterback situation. The team itself is very good, and I'm sure money is not going to be something that becomes an issue for the Eagles. I'm sure they'd pay him what he deserves.
Completely agree. Tight end of the week, George Kittle again. Now,
astounding 12.9.
This
not
shouldn't
an
count.
incredibly high dime, but
This shouldn't count at all.
I would like to point out that, Ubby, you traded Kittle to me a while ago, and he's just been getting dime after dime. How does that make you feel?
This dime is 12.9 points, and I had a tight end on my bench score more. I do not care.
Well, okay, but you didn't. Let's think about this for a second, right? I mean, it's been like the past few weeks of starting tight ends. George Kittle just keeps topping it. I mean, he's beating out Mark Andrew, Travis Kelce, and you traded him.
Not beat out Travis Kelce. Let's pump the brakes, right? Like 1 week he beat him, right?
Travis Kelce was on a bye.
He was on a bye this week too. So like
And Mark Andrews went out for an injury.
So come on, you gotta say all the facts right here. They didn't play, so obviously Kittle is doing well. And who I got in return, the I can't pronounce his name. Whatever his name is, the tight end for the Steelers. He's been doing good. He's young. I'm happy with him.
All right. Well, sometimes it sounds like a cope. You can cope all you want. So let's keep it moving.
Okay.
The defensive side of the ball. Zadarius Smith, 46 points for CD's nuts. Whoa.
Unbelievable. I don't know what else to say.
Now, to be fair, this is an edge rusher, so it's one of those linebacker defensive line duos. But still, 46 points. That's nuts.
Like, is that a couple of interceptions, a couple of sacks? Like, what is that? Like, he's a rusher, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, those are sacks, baby.
My goodness.
Sacks are great, and we've talked about this before, but like the wins above replacement, as far as like the defensive side of the ball is concerned, if you have an edge rusher, that's who you want to put in because they can get you 11 points every single play, right? There's like that 11-point potential splash from a sack, and Zadarius Smith is great. This is his best game of the season by far. He's now in the top 10 of players that have scored in the BAAD Owners Fantasy League all year. Basically, anybody above 45 is in the top 10. Nobody's cracked 50 yet, but they've been very, very close. But yeah, this was an incredible week for Zadarius Smith.
Yeah, I mean, 3 sacks, like you said, that's 33 points right there alone, coupled with 7 tackles.
Yep.
He was everywhere. Like, I don't know. That's like something I feel like after that second sack, the quarterback just like, well, when is he coming? Like, he's already here. I don't like. What do you even do?
Sam Darnold seeing ghosts, right? Bit of an old reference.
But it checks out.
It does.
And, of
that
course,
was when you knew his career was over, is when I still can't believe they aired that. When they showed him say, like, I'm seeing ghosts out here, I don't think anybody would trust him ever again. That was just so weird.
Yeah, that was wild. But like we said, Zadarius Smith, edge rusher, defensive lineman, and linebacker. He also held the linebacker dime of the week category, so that once again goes to nuts with Zadarius Smith. So props to him. Put him in the defensive line spot. Of course, defensive linemen tend to make a little bit less points unless they're these linebacker defensive line duos. Excellent choice. Moving on, though, to the defensive back of the week, Eddie Jackson, once again for CD's nuts. So I think this is our first full half of the ball sweep. So CD's nuts gets all 3 defensive dimes.
Incredible. I mean, defensive, like, showboat. I don't even know. Like, this is incredible. He just picked the right players, and it's wow.
Yeah, so 27 points for Eddie Jackson. It's nothing absolutely mind-blowing. It's a great week, don't get me wrong, but it's no 46 points. So a pretty normal dime for the defensive back spot for CD's. Moving on to Lost Change. Oh, look at that, Ubby. You're finally going to get some recognition here. It looks like the Dallas Clovers, Irving Indica, Point Break FC, CD's Nuts, and Big Big Orcas all had some Lost Change this week. How sad. Or happy, if it's a decent one. But
this week I would have liked it. I would have liked to, win by more than I did. So
yeah, and last week Garrett and I did a little thing where we ranked each one on whether or not we felt like it was a good loss change situation.
It's pass-fail. If you were supposed to play them and you didn't, you fail. If you had somebody with like some great depth that, showed out and did well, then you passed, and that's great for you going forward. So I think we continue to do that through all of them.
I like that. I like that segment last
So,
time.
Abhi, I want to hear your thoughts on each one of these,
Definitely.
especially. So, the quarterback bench warmer, Justin Fields for CD's Nuts, putting up 26.04 points. What do you think about this?
Honestly, I don't blame him at all. It's Justin Fields. I don't trust him. Like we talked about earlier, I'm not going to call him a bust right now because his weapons, like Mooney, sure, but I don't know. His other quarterbacks were probably like ranked higher, playing teams that he probably trusted more. I wouldn't blame him for this one. I would pass this one because I wouldn't play Justin Fields either, even if I did have a team that was not tanking.
All right, well, I have to push back on this. I think that he should have started him. His
Why?
2 quarterbacks right now are Aaron Rodgers, who was going up against the Bills defense last week.
Ooh.
Sorry, not Bills. That was this week. Or last week, no. And then the other quarterback that he has is Mac Jones. Now, because the Cowboys do have a really good defense, initially you're like, oh, well, I don't know. I don't know if I want to play Justin Fields. But they have a terrible run defense. Like, it's not ranked very well. And their one Achilles heel seems to be running quarterbacks, and that's exactly what Justin Fields did. So I would have played Justin Fields over Mac Jones. I'm going to give him a fail for this one.
Really?
Yep.
Who did Mac Jones play this week?
Mac Jones played
The Jets.
the Jets.
I don't know. I would have still played Mac Jones over Justin Fields, especially with the Dallas defense.
Well, he only got 11 points, so,
I'm thinking I'm kind of split between you two. I think that the issue is that Justin Fields has been on a bit of a tear lately. The beginning of the season was rough, right? But he has been on a serious upswing lately. Mac Jones is not a great fantasy quarterback anyways. I think that Justin Fields could have played over it, but I also think I agree with Ubby that Justin Fields, to me, just reputation-wise, does not inspire a ton of confidence. It's going to be interesting seeing what CD's Nuts decides to do forward in that, quarterback room situation, especially because Aaron Rodgers, Mac Jones, Justin Fields is not my favorite quarterback room for fantasy right now.
I agree.
So there you have it. That's the quarterback loss change. Running back, Jamal Williams of the Big Big Orcas. What are your thoughts on this one, Evan?
Jamal Williams has been getting enough touches where I would have played him, honestly, but I don't know who Big Big Orca's other running backs are. I don't know her situation, but I would not have benched Jamal Williams based on his last.
Okay. Well, I got to tell you who the running backs are. Nick Chubb and Jonathan Taylor.
Okay, well, Jonathan Taylor, I have Jonathan Taylor in a bunch of leagues, and he's a disappointment. Scored 5.6 points or something. I am very upset about my pick with Jonathan Taylor. I would have paid Jamal Williams over Jonathan Taylor based on the last couple of weeks. But that's just me being very angry about how he's been performing, other than like that 1 week in the middle.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I'm also in the situation. I have him in other leagues too. I think that the tricky part, and I think that this is an issue with, real life football and fantasy, is that when you use a draft pick that high to be able to secure someone like Jonathan Taylor, you want to play them. And it's hard to sort of back away from him, you know? And in addition, one other thing to consider is DeAndre Swift is back this week. This was, you know, supposed to be DeAndre Swift's big back week. It didn't actually end up happening quite like that.
Yeah, I think they limited his touches, right?
They did, yeah. They said beforehand, too, that they were going to limit him, which is why I would have played Jamal Williams, because I have Swift in a couple of leagues, too, and I was reading about it. And they said that he would be limited, which is why if I had Jamal Williams, I would have played him over Swift because of that limited touch situation.
So there you go. Okay. So this would be another fail, at least for, you know, if for nothing else, probably could have gone in some sort of spot.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Wide receiver, also on the big orcas, DK Metcalf with 17.5 points.
Ooh, this one's rough for me, specifically because if you guys remember, there was a talk about him going on IR, about how big the injury was. So when he came back in and when they said that he was going to play again, I assumed he was going to be limited, which if that's what the thought process was, I can't blame big orcas, but it's DK's, he's a big dude. When he goes out there, he does play hard. So I'm iffy on this one. What do you guys think?
Let me tell you the wide receiver room here. Chris Olave, Michael Pittman, Jerry Jeudy, oh my God,
Amari Cooper, AJ Brown. Yeah, no, that room is absolutely stacked. I have no problem with not playing DK Metcalf. It's also not like he floated for like 40 points. He got 17.5. This is great depth for an already insanely loaded wide receiver room, which I think is probably what you want. If you have any, like, you know, embarrassment of riches at any offensive position, it's probably best for that to be wide receiver. So yeah, I think that the big orcas, you know, going forward will have either a lot of trade capital if they do want to try to make a push here later, or they're just going to hold on to a really stacked wide receiver room and always do well. So I consider this a pass.
I can agree with that.
This is a terrifying pass because I think it's a pass with flying colors, which is why would you have started DK Metcalf? He only got 17.5 points.
Yes.
It's a scary pass. All right, let's check out the tight end. Oh my gosh, this one's hilarious to me. You know, Avi, you know you keep showing up here on the tight end lost change?
Yes, I do. It pisses me off, honestly, because I understand that, like, you know, I have a goal in mind, getting that first overall pick, but you know, I'm not one of those tank for tanking things. I still want to get the highest score possible, play the players that, like, I think will do the best, and I just didn't trust Conklin, and then he goes and does this. I was watching the game, and every time he got the ball, it pissed me off.
Yeah, you've been playing Conklin every single week over Pat Freiermuth, and Pat Freiermuth keeps ending up as the lost change. And then the week that you do decide to bench Conklin, he absolutely pops off with 25.9 points.
It broke my heart because I was playing Garrett. I wanted to, you know, get as many points as possible to increase my chances of winning. And I was like, Tyler Conklin's not it. I've trusted him too long. And the second I put him in the bench, he pulled an Aiden Hutchinson on me and dropped a close to 30 piece.
Right. 100%. So that's disappointing. I will, however, give you a pass on this one. He has not been playing well. You have better tight ends on your
Jets'
team.
offense has just taken such a turn since Joe Flacco left, which is something that I never thought that I would say. I don't know what's happened.
Zach Wilson is a game manager. I'm again not gonna call him a bust.
I think Zach Wilson he's you know, suffering the same fate as Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Kenny Pickett. It's like, who are they throwing to? Like, honestly, I don't think that the wide receiver room there is great. That's probably why Tyler Conklin was, you know, going off for 25.9 points.
I mean, that's what I assumed would happen the first, like, you know, 3 weeks I played him, but then the week I bench him, he decides now is the time.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. It's never good. The funny part about it, though, is that this game alone, I was looking at it earlier. I'm going to pull it up. No. But it absolutely propelled him in the season's tight end rankings.
Really?
Yeah,
I'm assuming that Kelsey is 1, and Andrews and Kittle are 2 and 3 or something around that.
This is why tight end is such a hard position in this league.
It's so volatile.
You're under no circumstance are you playing 2 tight ends, unless you have like somebody in that top 3 and then another person in the top 3, you're just not doing it because they have such a high chance of completely busting.
I actually
Like tight ends are just not
considered playing
Yeah,
two
I
tight
don't
ends
know.
this week.
The only tight end I would consider like playing every week, no matter what, is Kelsey. And that's because I see him more as a wide receiver, just because of what he does.
Well, he is. He's the best receiver on a team, which is
Mark
hard
Andrews.
to say. Again, they're both complete outliers in this category. So, at the beginning of the year when the Atlanta Cicadas selected Mark Andrews as like their second or third pick, a lot of people were like, what? But when you consider the replacement fact of that, like that is one slot that you're getting 80% more points every week than everybody else in the league. And the only time that I've seen 2 tight ends be played this year was when Point Break played Taysom Hill and they played Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
And that was that the week where he was playing that QB running back, like did everything week?
Not really. He got hurt early, but he could have.
Okay.
It was the week after that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so tight ends, awesome. Let's keep it moving though. Leonard Williams, bench of the big Orcas.
I don't know much about his game, so I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, this one's weird. So the problem to me is that Leonard Williams has been doing terrible. Right? But it's tricky because I don't think that the big Orcas have that much defensive line talent in general. And so I think that could have potentially coin flipped it just because it's against Seattle. And I think that maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like Geno Smith's someone that's easy to sack. Who knows? I don't know the stats of it. I could be totally wrong. That's just gut feeling, right?
To agree with you. I don't like. How good would y'all say the offensive line for the Seahawks is?
I couldn't.
It's a lot better than it used to be when Russ was playing there. That's for sure. But it's still not great.
I couldn't tell you. I mean, I will say I do give this one a pass. Leonard Williams has not put up any points at all this season aside from this game. So, I mean, it's definitely not an automatic, like, oh, duh. Like, this is... No one would have seen this. This is actually his first double-digit game. So... And he missed a bunch of weeks at one point. I totally see it. Like he's just a depth piece. This is just a good look for big Orcas. Oh, look, I have someone on the bench who, if I'm in bye week or injury trouble, I can throw him in and hope that he might do something as opposed to just being some just random guy. I'll give it a pass.
Totally. And with the big Orcas potentially making a playoff push late, this is helpful for that.
Linebacker, J.J. Watt.
On
the
this
bench.
Is a fail. No, like I'm not even gonna. I don't even know what the discussion is. What?
Well, let's look into this. Now, J.J. Watt is not the same player that he has been in the past. Like he's still fine, but I mean, if you look at his entire season this year, from week 4 to week 7, he scored 10 points, 6 points, 8 points, and 3 points. He was only projected 8 points this week and tripled that, with 27, almost more than tripled. So I don't know. I mean, he's perpetually injured. Like, how there are those players that are technically always injured. They're just technically playing through an injury. JJ Watt will always be playing through injury because of age.
Right.
Like, that's just who he is
it
now.
might be like just like seeing what he's done, just the value I have on him as a player, where I would always play JJ Watt, but I understand with how he's been doing the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, sure. Listen, like if you've got JJ Watt, right, and somebody else that's projected 10 points and he's projected 8, and you have to choose between 2 of them, I mean, you do take star power typically as like the separator there. And I think that's fine, but I assume maybe they just have, it's hard to play a linebacker that's projected 8 points. You can pick up a linebacker on waivers every single week that's projected over 10 points.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, the thing is, I don't hate. I mean, you can't hate on this, especially when you see who their other defensive linemen that they did start: Matt Judon, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Von Miller. I mean, those are elite pass rushers. You're not going to start J.J. Watt at this point in his career over them. So
Right.
I don't hate this at all. This is a flying colors pass.
Yeah, and with a lot of those people on bye this next week, I mean, maybe he gets played again now that he's put up 27 points, because I think the Cowboys are on a bye. And then one of the other teams you mentioned, I think, is on a bye as well.
Bills are not on a bye, and then Pats, I'm not sure if they're all fast. Pats are not on a bye, so it's just DeMarcus Lawrence out. So maybe she ends up putting J.J. Watt in.
Yeah, potentially.
All right, well, let's take a gander. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, the Irving Indica, 33 points to the bench.
Taking a gander at Gardner.
Gardner.
I mean, this is just great for Irving Indica, right?
Yeah, I think it's just depth. I think this is fine.
Agreed. I mean,
I agree. Yeah, his lineup is very good, and having somebody like we were talking about wide receivers, where 17.5 is like, oh, like, wow, why would you play him? I wouldn't say that for like 33 points, but I understand with who he has. If you needed to bench C.J. Gardner, it made sense. It's not a bad choice per se.
Yeah, I think this is totally fine.
Did have a
makes sense.
past few weeks. So last week he was, of course, on, but then the weeks before that, week 5 and week 6, he got 31 points, then 25 points.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I mean, they were playing
multiple games too.
Yeah, they shut out the Raiders, right? I mean, that's tough. You're not gonna. The defense is gonna put up a lot of points if that happens.
The Eagles got him from the Saints, right? Is that what happened?
I can't tell you. I just know. I mean, yes, I believe actually. That sounds right.
Man, and he's young too, so it's a good player.
No, 100%. I mean, this is. I think this is honestly a fail, especially just because the Eagles were playing the Steelers. I mean, come on.
Kenny Pickett.
I mean, come on. C.J. Gardner ended up getting a sack, interception, 8 tackles, and, QB hit, pass defended. I mean, he was all over the place. This is one of the Eagles' best defensive backs right now, which, in a stacked back 7, right?
That's true. Yeah. Wait, so in our league, in our scoring, for a QB hit and a tackle, if you get a tackle on a QB, does it count as both? Or how does that work?
Okay, so the way it works, I actually just mapped this out for the owner of the Trash Fires a second ago. So if you get a sack, right, you're getting 11 points, no matter what, because you are taking 6 points for the sack. You get 2 points for the tackle being a solo tackle. You get 2 points for it being a tackle for loss, and you get an additional point because it was a hit on the QB. So if you hit the QB multiple times, that's 1 point. Any tackle for loss is 2 points. Any solo tackle is 2 points, and a sack is always 6. So that's why it really ranks up. If you've got DBs that are rushing the passer like a lot, that's huge.
Incredible.
Those are some of the most valuable DB. Those are some of the most valuable defensive players on your team by far.
Yeah, did you guys know, just a random side note, because I was looking through this, did you know that Jalen Ramsey only has 2 sacks in his career?
Wow.
And I bring that up because they happened in back-to-back weeks this year.
Oh.
That's actually really interesting.
Yeah,
that is.
I'm wondering if maybe it's one player's outlier that I'm seeing, or maybe more defensive schemes are trying to rush with cornerbacks or trying to rush with their defensive backs more. In their blitz packages. I don't know, but I thought that was really odd.
To see, free safety.
No, typically, yeah. That's why I was shocked to see the cornerback.
But I mean, especially I think you will tend to see a lot of slot corners blitz, right? Just is where they line up and do their speed, size.
Yeah.
Huge. It makes sense. And Jalen Ramsey's always been more of that blanket coverage type of guy, right?
Oh yeah, you do not rush with him usually, at all. That's why this is weird.
That's the perception. But
right.
There you go. That's interesting. That'll be interesting to see how people evaluate fantasy teams or within the BAAD owners. But that is all for the lost change. Now we're on to donuts of the week. This is a considerably shorter list than last week, where we had a ton of people on there. But unfortunately for me, it's my first week actually being on here. So we have the Plano Nukes and Irving Indica on Donuts of the Week. Rashad Bateman of the Plano Nukes is the first player up. Wide receiver, 0 points. This hurts me.
He's injured. Like, was he injured before and you just didn't know? Did you forget to take him out?
Injured during the game.
You just got the notifications that he's injured and out for like the season.
He got injured during the game about 30 minutes ago, actually. So during this podcast, yep, he's officially out. Rest of the season. Made me. Oof. Yeah.
Is this your first out for the season injury from a starter?
No.
Who else do you have?
Sterling Shepard. I'd have to look. I know Sterling Shepard's like the other big one.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Abby, do you have any like crazy injuries that have hit you so far?
Trey Lance, the second week.
Oh, that was a big one. Yeah.
My QB too. So yeah. Other than that, just like Randy Gregory and Joey Bosa, he's been in IR since the second week as well. And he's like
Joey Bosa is a big one for you for sure.
So hopefully, I'm very excited for next season. All these players.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Rashad Bateman's definitely my first like huge out for the season. Don't have anyone else that was absolutely. But tough. He played the game, got hurt. It happened.
Yeah, I can't blame you for this.
Elijah Moore, 0 points. Oof. Ooh. I'm sure you all have been following all the drama with Elijah Moore and the Jets.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
This one's for the Irving Indica, especially because the question really is, I don't know if this is going to get better anytime soon. And
like, I understand he's obviously wide receivers get paid based on their performance. If he's not getting balls thrown to him, he can't get his numbers, meaning he can't get paid. But at the same time, like, what are people supposed to do if there's a better player that you can throw to or whatever? But I don't know. It's tough. It's a tough situation for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, 100%.
It's helped Tyler Conklin, that's for sure.
But this is actually his second donut of the season. This past week he was in 17% of the snaps, and just extremely low, and got 0 targets. He actually got 1 target. Apologies. He got 1 target. 17% of the snaps, but in week 6, he didn't play week 7. But in week 6, 58% of the snaps he played and got 0 targets.
That would get on my nerves too. Like, imagine you're a wide receiver who's like, gonna be looking for a new contract soon. You play for over half the snaps and not 1 ball is thrown at you.
Yeah, I mean, he's a second-year player, so he's got a long time on his contract. So if he ends up in a weird situation with the Jets, in which the Jets are basically like, screw you, we're not going to trade you out or anything, he's in some serious fantasy trouble, and this could be some bad news for the Irving Indica.
Yeah, well, luckily the Irving Indica made a very lucrative trade at the beginning of the year to pick up one of the best receivers in fantasy now.
Yeah, how do you feel about that, Nick? How do you feel about, Hopkins going out there and showing everybody how washed he is, as he said?
Yeah. That one not aging well. At all. So I guess that's fair. Irving Indica does have still a great wide receiver room.
You've got Justin Jefferson,
DeAndre
well.
Hopkins. Elijah Moore still hurts, though. It's a young talent. Michael Thomas is also out, I believe, for the season.
This season,
he's
on IR.
Oh boy.
Not out for the season?
He's not out for the season. He just got put on. He's probably, if he comes back, I mean, he probably is out for the season, but like, they just put him on IR, so it's at least 4 weeks. They haven't officially said that he's out for the season.
Right, so pretty much out for a significant part of the rest of the fantasy season.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, he's starting to get in some wide receiver trouble if Elijah Moore doesn't get his situation figured out with the Jets. So that'll be definitely something to keep tabs on.
Sure, he'll make the right moves and see what's up. He's been good about that, clearly, as Nick would know.
Ha. Man, that's good. But let's just get on to the awards, the final part. The best manager reclaiming his throne, the Trash Fires with 92% efficiency.
All right, breaking news, everybody. I've actually got Brandon Fangio, the owner of the Trash Fires, here with me. And he'd like to talk about this real quick.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so 92% efficiency, obviously I'm happy to see this, right? I mean, I don't think anybody who hits 90% or above would be unhappy about it, right? I believe 92% is the second highest efficiency of all time after the Castle Rock Rockers last week with 93%, right? So falling short on the best efficiency of all time, but still, great here. I'm really proud of my team, really happy with my my starting line here.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Brandon.
I really hate successful people, man.
It's so great.
The rich get richer.
Right.
They
once
really
again,
do.
Just proving all of us wrong that, it doesn't take talent to win fantasy football. It takes just straight up good management skills and being actually good at the game. So there you go. Trash Fires as best manager. Worst manager, speaking of being good or bad at the game, 77.9% efficiency for the Plano Nukes. Now, I'm going to defend myself a little bit here. I believe it was 7 starters not play this week due to injuries, one of which was on one player had a bye, but 6 went out this week. So I was digging for depth pieces, and I had no idea for some of those. Some of them were just coin flips, basically.
You were at the point where you were messaging me asking for trades, and I was like, I'm done. I'm not.
I was digging deep. I was coin flipping. I coin flipped the wrong players. I'm honestly not actually upset at all about this because I'm hopefully going to get a lot of those starters back and be able to start playing again. And I wasn't terribly unhappy with how a lot of my depth pieces played. So,
Side note here, Roquan Smith over there on the left. You want to talk about how excited you are about his new destination? Or less excited?
Right. Roquan Smith heading on over to the Ravens. Absolutely fantastic. I'm actually really excited for this just because linebacker, Ravens, they tend to do well there, right? So I think,
oh my God,
franchise-wise,
they're one of the worst defenses in the league right now.
We're talking historically, all right? You throw Roquan Smith in there, start rebuilding that Ravens defense. Oh man, I'm excited to see.
I think he's gonna be like the highest paid linebacker ever.
He will be.
Oh, he will.
That's how it goes. It resets the market every time somebody comes up. Like when Micah comes on the market, he'll be the highest. I mean, that's just how it goes.
Makes sense.
It just is what it is. I do think that it's interesting. It'll be interesting his situation with the Ravens, just due to the fact that he's an off-ball side linebacker. I mean, that's not a super valuable position right now. Just due to the way the NFL works. So we'll see how much he actually ends up getting. But I don't care because he's going to play somewhere next year because he's amazing. So
yeah, he's a run-stopping beast too, which is awesome.
Which is huge for fantasy points because it just racks up those tackles.
Definitely. Yeah, like a lot of the linebackers that you see these days do drop into coverage due to multiple teams running 2 tight end packages.
Yep.
So, you have to drop back in coverage a lot. But, I mean, the Bears have used him very, very well as like their run-stopping threat. But I'm interested, with how bad the Ravens secondary is. Maybe they do drop him back into coverage for a few just to help. But I don't know. We'll see. I'm very excited to see him in a New Jersey on a team that's still competing for a title, which is awesome.
Don't get me wrong. I'm of course nervous whenever you have he's playing. I mean, how much better can he possibly get fantasy-wise at this point, right? I think possibly the number 1 defensive player in points, I believe, if I'm remembering that correctly right now. So switching environment is not going to boost him up any higher. But I don't know. I'm excited, optimistic. We'll see what ends up.
Are you worried about like the first 2 weeks where they'll definitely be like, do the change of scenery, have like the new game plans to 100%. Figure out and stuff like that? Or are you just going to get into it and go back to what he's doing?
100% worried about it, but I will say with how good he is as a player, I'm not overly worried because I think he'll do great wherever he is.
Makes sense. I agree.
All right. Coming in with the highest points and loss, TD11 Tudgaze again. This is back-to-back weeks that they got this award. That's tough. 316 points and lost.
Man, that's just unlucky.
it's brutal. That's what it is. I mean,
I don't feel too bad for them. They play me next week, and they're gonna get 2 wins. So they'll be fine.
perfect. Well, hopefully the bad luck streak ends for them in this upcoming week. We'll, of course, see what ends up happening with that. Lowest points and win, Dallas Clovers. Way to go.
Oh, baby.
Boom.
Oh, my goodness.
58 points to 220.98. 220.98 seems like a Dallas Clovers score.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what happened?
this is
Jared,
the first
you have
time.
Max Crosby, and I have all your picks, but I thought you'd win for sure, dude. What is this?
You know, shockingly enough, it was hard. So you know how I always put like the 2 best players of a team on here? It was really hard for me to decide which players to put on here because I had never put Dallas Clovers on anything. So I put DeAndre Swift and Bradley Chubb. Do you think that that's accurate? I'm just trying to make sure because it was hard to find.
Oh, okay. So you're talking a lot, but you lost to me. So I don't know.
I did. Listen, I mean, every dog has its day, you know? I mean,
And I just like to point out, not only did you lose, you lost by a lot.
I did. I lost by about 68 points. I also lost Austin Eckler to a bye week and Jamar Chase to an injury. Those
Yes.
definitely hurt.
The
And
codes
yeah,
are coming
could have
out.
been more if I just played Tyler Conklin, but it happens. But
Yeah,
every one of your
quarterback.
losses is a win for me because usually I'm all about that, tanking in the sense the ethical tanking, playing all my players that I think will score well, and then hope I still can get away with not doing too hot. But I wanted to win this week, but be less than the median, which is exactly what happened. Because every time you lose and there's a chance you don't make the playoffs, your picks become that much more valuable. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
I don't even know how to follow that up. There you go. Yeah, that's true. Good win.
Awesome. Biggest blowout is actually not this game. The biggest blow occurred to a team that scored over 300 points.
There was a real chance they could get to 400 too if they had played some other players. on their bench,
100%.
which is crazy.
100%. The CD's nuts with 382.44 points to 301.4 in the biggest blowout. What on earth was going on over there?
Is that our highest score? Or has there been one that's a bit
Absolutely.
higher?
That's the highest. It was 357 last
Okay.
week. Now this eclipsed it by quite a bit.
300. That's just insane. I don't
Absolutely
even know
bonkers.
what to think about that score because my highest score ever has been 303. So it was the first week, and I was like, ooh. But after this,
It's out of nowhere too. This is, I mean, the CD's nuts have been dropping like a stone. I thought they would be up in a top 4 category for sure at the beginning of the year because they came out so hot. And then last week the Nukes beat them head to head, and then they dropped below 500. Now they're back. So this was crazy. I mean, they could be a serious threat going forward if they can continue to get hot like this.
Totally agree. I mean, if consistency comes back to this team, that's a scary dark horse playoff candidate.
and I'm all for them. I have none of their picks.
There you go. Narrow victory. Atlanta Cicadas winning with 324.84 to 316.36. Way to go, Atlanta Cicadas. Tough loss. I don't remember who they played. See it in a second. There you have it.
They played the Tudgays.
Yeah,
Very
that's
low
right. They
point.
played the Tudgays. Highest points. Hopefully the Tudgays get out of that bad luck streak. That's really all it is, right? When you're putting up over 300 points consistently and still losing, just bad luck. It is what it is.
Yeah, not everybody gets lucky enough to play me every week.
There you go, right? But here we have it. This is the overall recap. Irving Indica beat out Point Break. Trash Fires, unfortunately, beat me, the Plano Nukes. Atlanta Cicadas beat the 11 Gays. Dallas Clovers beat the Castle Rock Rockers in the largest upset victory of the week. CD's
Yes, we
Nuts
did.
With an absolute historic win, 382.44 to 301. A big one. Ubby, what are your thoughts seeing this kind of laid out this one?
This is just
So-
a fun week in general.
Just, yeah, it's a very, first of all, the median score was incredibly high, 307. I was surprised. I don't know if surprised is the word because a lot of these teams have been known to put up above 300. I just didn't expect it to be so high, and so many teams do it the same week. But that 382 really was eye-popping. I was looking at their team as they were going up. I saw them go from 280 to 335 and at one point, and I was already like, oh, they're definitely going to win, but how much are they going to keep going? And at the end of like Monday night when I looked and they were at 380 whatever, it was shocking. And just, some of these teams I expected to lose, like, obviously because my team is so powerful, I expected to beat Garrett. But other than that, how do you feel about your loss to the Trash Fires? Weren't you projected to win at the beginning? I feel like they're always projected to lose, and they end up winning every week.
I actually wasn't projected to win at the beginning after my 6 out players.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah, I was actually projected to lose by 30 points at the start of Sunday. So, no, I wasn't surprised at all to lose here. And especially with how coin flippy the depth pieces were, this wasn't a surprise at all. I mean, there was always, of course, a chance that I would hit on the right players, and if I had picked all the right players, I think I might have possibly had a chance. I'm actually curious about that. But, no, not surprised at all. I am disappointed because I did think I had a shot at beating them going into this week. And no, actually, so I just looked. My total max points for was only 321. Which was still below how many points they got. So, no, not surprised at all. Just depth pieces.
No, and I just want to say again, just Trash Fires, like Brandon's team, like the efficiency is incredible. Every week I am just so, like, I don't even know the right words. I don't know how he does it. Every week it's like above 87% or whatever. And it's great to see, but as long as he's not playing me.
Well, it will eventually. Yeah, like you said, super crazy high median score. Let's take a look at the overall not final standings, but current standings. All right, so we've got the Trash Fires in first, Irving Indica in second, and Castle Rock Rockers in third. Not a whole lot of movement, honestly, at all. Irving Indica was third, Castle Rock Rockers were second. They just kind of swapped places this week. But what is kind of interesting is you're starting to see the records of all the teams slowly start to spread out.
I am noticing that teams are beating each other, but not the median, and it's showing up because it's showing up that there are some teams that are clearly above the pack than others, even if they're beating whoever their direct opponent is.
Agreed, and like. The Trash Fires are really starting to pull ahead now. They're now 2 wins above second place. I was not expecting this at all. I don't think very many people were expecting this. I think that going into the season, a lot of people thought they were one of the weaker teams at first when talking to people. There was a lot of talk about the Atlanta Cicadas, Irving Indica, CD's Nuts, TD11 Tudgays. No one was talking about the Trash Fires, and they're now sitting at the top of the league, 13-3 after week 8. Crazy. It just really goes to show that there's way more than just household name talent that goes into something like this.
Completely agree.
Yeah, and we're on the back half of the season now. Like, even if he has some terrible games moving forward, I mean, he's pretty much guaranteed a playoff, which is great. I mean, he's not officially locked in. Once people get locked in, we'll start putting him down, but it's awesome to see his team overperform every week.
I mean, I'm just waiting for it to not overperform just to see what would happen, but at this point, I don't know if it will. I think they're just at that point where they're just going to keep rolling.
Agreed. I mean, can't argue with just what's been actually happening, right? It's just straight facts. They overperform every single week. At a certain point, it's just how they're going to be performing. They're not overperforming.
It's no longer overperforming, right? At that point, that's how they perform. You can't be overperforming if they're doing it every week.
It's almost like the Giants this season in the actual NFL, right? They have a ton of injured talent. They're on a ton of, I don't want to say no name, but not household well-known guys, and they're winning every single week. I mean, not this past week, but they're doing incredible. So Trash Fires and the New York Giants have a lot in common right now. But let's go into who we think the top 3 power ranked teams are currently. So Ubby, let's have you lead us off. Who do you think are the top 3 teams in the Bad Owners League right now? So,
it's hard for me to be like 1, 2, 3, but I do think like the 3 best teams that have a chance to hold those spots. I think Irving Indica, just with his star power, with getting Hopkins back, I think they're going to be up there. And unfortunately, I do think Garrett's team is up there with like, the trades we've done with Eckler and Crosby and all, like his star power and what he's been able to do when they're not on a bye and not injured. I believe he's up there as well. And I honestly really like TD Loving Tudgate's team, and I think they're up there just based on their team. I don't know how it'll pan out, but those are my 3 top teams.
Okay. Garrett, what about you?
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with, the 3 princes that were promised at the beginning of the season. I'm going to go with the Irving Indica, the TD Levin Tudgays, and the Atlanta Cicadas. I think in that order as well.
Okay.
That's my top 3.
I am going to have to go with Trash Fires at number 1, which, anyone who's been listening knows that I've had some serious issues with them at the number 1
You
ranking
didn't
for a while.
think they would be a playoff team like 3 weeks ago.
Agreed. But at this point, they just keep winning. At a certain point, you got to just wake up and admit that you were wrong. The Trash
People
Fires are
are
the number 1 team in the
show you
Bad
they are.
Owners League.
That's right.
They're the number 1 team in the Bad Owners League right now. It's straight facts. Number 2, see, this is a tricky one. 'Cause right now, I think that there's just so much potential for. I think the Trash Fires are clearly the number 1, but then once it gets to the number 2 and the number 3, things get a lot more murky. I see, if I had to pick one, I'd want to put the Irving Indica at the number 2 spot. Now, the reason for it is because with Hopkins coming back, that's a serious boost to their team. And unfortunately, I traded Hopkins away because I didn't think that he was going to do too well. And look at that. He's performing awesome. He's DeAndre Hopkins. Who would have thought? Especially with Hollywood Brown out. He has so much target share, and I think that's a boost to the team. An already super strong team. I'm going to put them at the number 2 spot. And at number 3, it's weird. I'm between the Castle Rock Rockers and the Atlanta Cicadas. I've got to give it to the Atlanta Cicadas for no other reason than I think that the Atlanta Cicadas are primed to go extremely deep soon because I believe TJ Watt is soon to be back.
100%. They already have so much depth. The beginning of the season, me trading for their first pick gave them so many picks in that juicy 2 to 5 zone, and they are using them so well. So I think that, it's just like real football, right? When teams are primed for a Super Bowl push, they're healthy, and if they're not healthy, depth. And that's all this game is surviving until the end. And a lot of teams are, already starting to drop because of, key star players missing. And then the Atlanta Cicadas can just keep that next man up mentality going forward and most likely take the whole thing. So that's why I have them ranked so high as well. I totally agree.
I can get behind that.
So who do we think is going to get the first overall pick?
Me.
He has cleared the max points by quite a bit.
Clearly ahead of everyone else.
If I did it, I would be. Somebody would have to I don't know how. The closest person is who? Oh, the big orcas. I don't know what they would even have to do to get below me at this point.
Closest is actually Point Break for the number 2. Point Break is currently in number 2.
Okay. Well, either way, it's. I don't know. I feel like the distance. I've distanced myself enough where I can, put it out there. But I will say to all the owners, my first round pick is up for grabs. I'm willing to trade it. You just have to probably give me all your players.
Good luck, buddy. I'm glad that you're putting feelers out there. Now's the time to do it. But yeah, I'd also like to point out that the Trash Fires have the 3rd lowest max points for. Still, they're still in that area, and they're 13-3.
Wow.
16 possible games, won 13 of them. Crazy.
And the crazy thing to me, what more so than the points for, is the max points for. So incredible.
No, that's what I said. They're top. They're
top.
Bottom 3 in max points for.
Got it.
Yeah.
Bottom 3 max points.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's insane. But just is what it is. Just Trash Fires doing Trash Fires things, absolutely dominating everyone with subpar talent.
That's right.
And I just noticed that Garrett, you've gotten lucky with points against as well. You have quite a
Oh my
distance.
god. Did you watch a
I bring that
podcast
up all the
last week
time.
that talked about this?
I bring it up all the time.
Oh no, I didn't watch the end of last week. So I guess is that what? Yeah, no, I didn't miss that one then.
I've
but
been saying it
that's
for
incredible.
weeks.
Okay, but if you look at my opponent's scores, again, you know what? Just watch every podcast, and you'll see my take on this. Everybody I play usually does very, very poorly, regardless of how I do. Unless you're the Dallas Clovers, then you just decide to have your best week of the season.
It's the opposite. It's like, you know, I always do bad, so I had to do well against you.
Right. Well, thank you everybody for listening to Week 8, and stay tuned for Week 9 and an eventual playoff push from a lot of crazy teams. We have plenty of movement, I suspect, coming up in the next 2 weeks on
Yeah,
this.
be ready for me to, you know, get that one seed, guys. It's coming.
That's yes.
Yeah, be sure to let us know any takes that we have that are absolutely awful or absolutely. Let us know you're also top 3 picks. You have a different top 3 teams. Let's hear it. But thank you all. Is there anything else y'all wanted to talk about before we sign off today?
I think we're good to go.
Yeah, we're good to go.
All right, well, see y'all.